How to increase your damage in Hypixel Skyblock. It's probably one of the most commonly asked questions. Dealing damage has always been important in Hypixel Skyblock because of features like dungeons, mini-bosses, and so on. Now, simply hitting something and doing damage, it seems pretty simple on face value. But if you're a newer player, you'll understand that it's not so easy. It's not so simple just because there are so many different components that will basically decide how much damage you deal. It's pretty mental. Now, majority of people who are watching this video are going to know that if you have a better weapon, it will do more damage. If you have better armor, it will do more damage. If you have a better pet, it will do more damage. I feel like even people who haven't played Skyblock before could probably guess this. So I'm going to be going over the less obvious things that you can do to increase your damage that people may be missing out on. So first of all, we've got accessories and power stones. Ridiculously important. So for those of you who don't know, an accessory or a talisman is basically a relic that can be kept in your accessory bag and give you stat buffs. Now you can pick up very basic accessories at the adventurer near the bazaar. You can buy these talismans here, they're very cheap. At the same time, there's accessories that aren't so cheap. So essentially, the amount of accessories you have and the rarity they are combined towards your power level. As you can see, my magical power here is 876. And my magical power will determine how much of a buff my power stone gives me. Now you may ask, what is a power stone? Well, if you come over to Maxwell here at the hub and click on him, he gives you some basic power stones that you can use in order to get some better stats. Now power stones like Hurtful, Bloody, and I think, is it Sighted? Yep, Sighted. These are not basic power stones, so you'll essentially need to learn the power stone in order to be able to use it. Now, to do that, you need 9 identical power stones. Now, you can earn these power stones, depending on which the power stone is, from all over Skyblock. Alternatively, you can buy them from the bazaar. I'm sorry if you're an Iron Man. In the bazaar, you can head over to the power stones, and from here, you'll be able to choose which one you'd like to buy. Remember, you'll need 9 of these, so it can become quite expensive. Now, some power stones are better than others, obviously some are cheaper than others, and they all give you different stat buffs. For instance, this is just completely random. The Magma Urchin, if we click into this, we'll be able to see what it actually does. So at 1000 magical power, it will give you 155 strength and 620 crit damage. Whereas the Endermolecule gives you the Sighted Reforge, which at 1000 magical power gives you 1163 intelligence. Also gives you +3 ability damage. Obviously, this would be great for if you're playing mage, but not so great if you weren't playing mage. Anyway, as I said before, you'll need to buy 9 of these to actually learn the power stone. Silky doesn't really have much use. I don't really have much use for it, but it's very cheap, so I'll just give you an example of how to actually do it. So if we go ahead and buy 9, it is very cheap. And head back over to Maxwell, click on Learn Power Stones, and we just basically shift click all of these into the crafting bench. Click Learn Power Stone, and now if we go back into here, we can now unlock Silky. We've got it there. It's not great, but we've got Silky. So depending on your Skyblock stats, you'll need to determine which one is best for you, and to be honest, I can't really do that for everyone. So when deciding on a power stone, essentially if you're a mage, then go for Sighted or Fortuitous, you get that for free. If for instance you have a Juju shortbow, obviously you want some attack speed, so maybe you want something that buffs your attack speed. At the same time, you want to try and damage your crit damage and strength. That's how you will get optimum damage. As you can see here, my crit damage is 310, my strength is 429, so I'd probably want something that gives me more of a crit damage buff than a strength buff in order to balance these out. Anyway, in addition to accessories, you can also purchase enrichments from the community shop. You can also buy them from the auction house. We go over to the bit shop. As you can see down here, we've got enrichments, and these can be applied to talismans, giving them, well, an extra buff. Next up, something not to sleep on is accessories. Accessories are, well, accessories, I guess. They're just extra sort of relics that give you a buff of stats. These can also be reforged, which is pretty cool. For instance, if you use a Hyperion, an Implosion Belt is pretty much mandatory because it gives you extra 25% damage when the explosion hits the enemy. It's pretty cool. Obviously, depending on how many coins you have, you can choose what you want, what's in budget, and it will simply just make you stronger. I mean, there's not really anything else to it. And the next one is a little bit annoying. Your foraging level actually increases your strength. Every time you level up your foraging, you get +2 strength. Yeah, well, not always +2, but the low levels it's +1, but you get what I mean. Basically, the higher foraging level you are, the higher your base strength is. As we all know, foraging can be boring. So at this point, it's time to get a movie on your other monitor, or your iPad, or whatever you've got, and simply zone out from the game and watch something else while you forage, because it is painful. Hence this amazing foraging level. Now, speaking of skills, your combat level also increases your crit damage, which in turn will increase your overall damage. As you can see, every time you level up, your base crit damage increases by 0.5%. In all fairness, You can level combat up by doing a lot of things. Slayers, just simply grinding zealots, catacombs, everything. So it's, you know, it's fairly easy to do. Saying that, I am only combat 42. But we're not here to roast my skill levels. Okay, the next thing is so effective. It's a fairly cheap price, really. We find ourselves at the community shop again, back at the bit shop. It's a god pot. So a god pot basically gives you an assortment of potion effects. So I currently have a god pot on. If you type /effects, it will bring you to this page where you can see all the effects that have been applied to you from the god pot. Some of the most important ones are critical 4. I mean, look at that buff. You've got other stats like adrenaline, and there's loads of them that make you basically almost invincible. I say almost. Now, unfortunately, if you have god pot on and you die, then you lose the effects unless you have a booster cookie. So maybe pair the god pot with the booster cookie, although the booster cookie doesn't really have any effect on your damage. If you don't have any bits, you can buy god pot off the AH for around about 700k. So one other thing, basically, the higher alchemy level you have, the longer the god pot lasts for. So everyone will get it for 12 hours, but because I've got my alchemy maxed out, I get an extra 12 hours. So in theory, I guess your alchemy level sort of impacts your damage. I mean, it impacts your ability damage, but Now, if you're going solely for mage damage, then you need to level your enchanting up, considering that every time you level up your enchanting, you get plus 0.5% ability damage, and also intelligence. Enchanting is very, very easy, so you should do this. Same goes for alchemy. Every time you level up, you get more intelligence. Alchemy is the most pointless, boring, painful skill to level up on the game. Just wait for Derpy, get some potions and brew them. Okay, so next up we find ourselves at the bazaar, and we're going to be talking about recombobulators. So essentially a recombobulator is an item that upgrades an item's rarity. So for instance, this Hyperion here is legendary, recombobulated, it's mythic. Now if you recombobulate an item, and both items are base, you have a recombobulated and non-recombobulated, there's not going to be any difference at all whatsoever other than the rarity. Although when you reforge the item, the buff from the reforge will be better because it's a higher rarity. That's how it works. So this Hyperion here is recombobulated and heroic. The buffs you can see in the blue brackets at the top that it gives would be less if it was legendary than it is mythic. Now recombobulators are around about 6.5 to 7 mil per piece. So if you're on a budget, maybe perhaps having this lower down on your priority list. Like I said before, you can also recombobulate talismans, although as you can imagine, you have a lot of talismans that can become very expensive. Now something else that should be brought to attention is your bestiary collection. Now essentially what bestiary is it's a calculation of how many mobs you've killed of a certain type. The more you kill of that mob, the stronger you get against them. And this is basically calculated in bestiary levels. For instance here, my current zealot level is zealot 8, working towards zealot 9. The way I get towards zealot 9 is by killing zealots. And when I reach the zealot 9 milestone, as you can see here, I will get plus 11 strength against zealots, which means I will deal more damage. Now this is the same against every single mob in the game. The more you kill of it, the stronger you get. Other than that, it's quite self-explanatory, to be completely honest. Something else to mention is dungeons. I'm going to touch on dungeons, I'm not going to go too in depth. So every time you level up your catacombs, essentially you get stronger. For instance here, leveling up from 15 to 16 increases the base stats of your dungeon items from 75% to 82 while in the catacombs. In dungeons, obviously the stars in your armor can also make a difference. A big difference. You'll do way more damage and be tankier and so on. Now to be honest, it's a question I've asked myself in the past, but I get a lot of people basically asking, why am I not doing a lot of damage within dungeons, and how is everyone doing so much more damage? Well, if you've got the right armor and the right weapon and the right pet, first of all, you can use a dungeon potion that can be bought from the NPC next to the dungeon hub finder. Second of all, you just need to be at higher catacombs level. That is most of the time the reason. Pair that with your actual class level as well. For instance, if you always play mage, but then you switch to healer, you're going to be a lower healer class level, which means that technically you're going to be weaker as a healer than you are as a mage. And the only way to increase both your class level and your catacombs level is to play more dungeons. And that's pretty much it. Anyway, like I said at the start, there's probably quite a few more ways that you can increase your damage. Forget that, there will be. But today, I've just gone over some of the less obvious sort of things that you could possibly do to increase your damage, probably more aimed towards earlier game players and newer players to the game. But anyway, that just about wraps up today's video. I hope you all have enjoyed. If you have, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.